Went to the van to get some bits and pieces out of the van. Noticed a strange odour, strange smell. And then it dawned on me the last time that I was out fishing, I opened the lid of a bucket that hadn't been opened in about 3 years to get some pop-ups to the dynamite pop-ups that I use. Get one of them. And I forgot to put the lid back on it. Well, somewhere in the 3 years of the lid being on the bucket, some CC Moore Pacific tuna escaped the bottle. And I ain't too sure if you can see into the bucket, but quite a healthy layer of Pacific tuna lined the bucket. Now, if it was just a bucket you chopped up fish with and made ground bait out of, wouldn't have been a problem. What did I have stored in the bucket? Let me show you. I'll just take you with me here. We're going to go outside for a wee spot. Past the boat, still operational, still getting fixed up. So what was stored in the bucket, I hear you ask? Well, these are what was stored in the bucket. Leads. And back leads. And snag leader. And all of them were glued together with this stuff. Now, not actually that bottle, because the original bottle's been, sent binwards, but so there we go. I was going to do a video today on setting up a float ledger for the boat fishing, and then I kind of took out my drifter float rod and realised that somewhere in transit the vane from a drifter float has been smashed. Common fault with these things, they are flimsy as hell and they're very brittle and they break. So you get them in packs of like 3 or 4 so you can replace them. But I'm going to wash this bucket out with some hot water, put the leads back in a lead bag, and then I'm going to show you how I make a float ledger trace system. Now this is going to be a bait trace plus an up trace. Up traces are important if you're using the likes of live trout or live bait. However, gotta clarify, in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland and Scotland, live baiting not allowed. So this is purely for educational purposes. I don't want anyone getting arrested for live baiting and then blaming me. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Of course you don't have to just use it with live baits. If you're float ledger fishing, just to be really safe, you should use an up trace. So this is probably best practice for float ledgering, especially if you're going to start popping up baits off the bottom while float ledgering, because the bait has the chance of being blown back around the trace and get tangled in the trace. So it's just an added bit of safety. But let me get this shit tidied up and then I'll be right back with you. Right, mess finished up with. Right, so first things first, I'm going to take out my floats. All my floats are in this tough case. Oh yeah, forgot about that. That's a little lead that I found inside a perch. I wonder why people are pushing leads inside perch. The perch was dead, it was at the side of the lock, it looked like it had been used as bait, so maybe somebody was using it to weight it down. There was line attached to it, so they could have undone the trace and then forgot to pull their, it's only a little half-ounce lead bomb, they could have forgot to pull it out. But either way, it's a case of take your rubbish home with you. Don't leave your crap at the side of the lake, or loch, or river, or wherever you're fishing. take your stuff home with you. Right, today we're going to discuss. Yeah, there's the one I want there. We're going to discuss pencil floats and how to fish with a ledgered pencil float. This bag is great. Scales, floats, oils, rigs, ancillaries, tackle box. Great bag, holds everything. Right, so pencil floats. This way so you can see it. You get many different types and flavours of pencil float. By flavours I am joking, don't go licking your floats. Typically this is a pencil float. So some come with little vanes, that's just a pencil float. The rig that I'm going to show you now on the drawing, this is the sort of float that I would use. Again, sometimes I would colour the tips in black, 1/2 black, so when it's turning in the water you can see it turning. If you're fishing in dark conditions or low light conditions, you can get these where you can put a little glow stick in. And if you're fishing, you don't always just need to use pencil floats like this, you can use other floats. You can use floats like this, that when you wind down, this will pop up in the water and like bob around. Float ledgering. Let's discuss float ledgering. Say you're fishing in 10 feet of water. You want your weight on the bottom. Now typically for a float ledger, you don't have to go massively heavy. In fact, it's kind of defeating the object to go massively heavy. So you only use a weight that's like, let me get these out of the way so I can show you. Float ledgering, you'd only really use a weight that's about that sort of size. That's about 2 ounces. 1.5 to 2 ounces is fine for float ledgering. This is more than enough weight to sink this, but you're not wanting to sink it. What you want to do is fish this over depth. So when you cast out, your weight hits the bottom with your rig, and then you tighten down the line to your boat, and this will basically pull this under so it'll sit like this in the water. It'll float. Diagrams will show you a bit better. So I'm going to tie a up trace and a hook trace to go with it. So for this we don't need the floats, so I'll put these away. We don't need them. In fact, I'm going to put this broken one in here so I know that this is my float bag. The reason I put one of these in the front is so at a glance I know this is floats, that is slings, that is scales. So, and you don't need to worry about these are for another occasion. So is that. Right, so let's get my main box out. We're going to use, let's see what sort of wire I have here. We'll use 30-pound test just to show you. So for your up trace, you need 18 inches. For your hook trace, you need 12 inches. So this is why I have stuff marked down on the bottom of the fridge here. As long as your up trace is longer than your bait trace, you should be okay. So instead of 18 inches, we're going to up the up trace. Up it to 24 inches, so that the up trace is twice the length of the bait trace. Now, so go to the edge of our freezer here, and because we're making an up trace, we only have to take 2 extra inches, so it'll be 5, 6 about there. It doesn't need to be precise to the damn centimetre. As long as you have a ratio of 2 to 1 for up trace and for hook trace. So that's your up trace. Then you need your, this is where I struggle to find things because I've moved them and forgot where I've put them, and then I end up swearing and going daft. Right, so 12 inches. So just set that there. inches. Because we're fishing with a 12-inch bait trace, you want to take 15 inches of wire. It takes an inch for every turn on your hook. So you put on one hook, that's 1 inch. Put on two hooks, that's 2 inches. Put on the swivel, that is 3 inches. So you make it 3 inches over depth. You're going to need hooks. So let's get some hooks out. Let's get some size 6s. Let's get some nice owners. Because this is the 30-pound wire, I'm going to use a size 2 crimp. If I can get into the pocket. There we go. Yeah, size 2 crimps are perfect. Right, so I make the trace. You've seen me make traces a load of times, so I'm just going to whip through this one dead quick. All I can smell is Pacific tuna oil. Now some of you out there will be saying, why are you only using a 12-inch hook trace? Well, that's because I'm using an up trace with it. So your trace effectively is 12-inch plus your up trace. So you do end up fishing with a decent length of trace wire. The reason you don't make it all in the one length of trace wire is because the hook traces will get tangled, and eventually you will have to replace hook traces. Just snip this end here. Get a little rubber sleeve. Now with your up traces, you can fish them a couple of different ways. You can fish them with a running ring, or you can use a John Roberts boom. Now, this trace, I'm going to tie it up with a running ring, but the boom is just as simple. It's the same thing. The only thing that difference with the boom is the boom will not slide off the up trace. So that means your fish, after 2 feet, your fish will begin to feel the lead. But after 2 feet of movement, you should be fit to see that your float's away and that it's time to wind down and strike. So there's the hook side built. Now let's just put on a bit for the for your swivel. Again, I'm fishing with a swivel, so my up trace will be attached to your main line, then your bait trace will be attached by a clip, so that this is good, so that when you're going to unhook the fish, you can unattach the clip, take the bait trace away, so that you're not stepping in the damn rod or tripping up over it or getting in the way of yourself. It's just one of those things. You'll just have to imagine I'm doing something more exciting here just to get this tied up dead quick for you. Again, you've seen me making traces a lot of times, so I'm not going to slow down and show you how to make the hook trace again. Otherwise the video will be fucking longer than it needs to be. Pull that back, push your little sleeve on, and that will be your 12-inch hook length. Let's see how it measures. Oh, 13 inches. Well, nobody ever complained about that extra inch. Ask any woman. Now, up trace. So here we have our up trace bare wire. First we're going to put on a clip. You can put on a few different clips. You put on clips like this. You can put on clips like this. But we're going to use a clip like this. And I'll show you now why. So we need one of those, and we need a swivel. And then we need a bead. Big bead. Bead. Right. So, clip end is attached the exact same way as you attach your hooks. All my traces are tied using a choke knot. This is a Gemini clip made by Gemini. Sea fishing stuff. I think it's rated to something stupid like 120 pounds. So it's rated to a lot heavier than what we need it for. Because let's face it, if you're catching a pike 120 pounds, your 30-pound trace wire, you're going to have to be playing it very softly. So, crimp. There you have it. That end's crimped and knotted, so it's not going anywhere. Fold down the tag. Get your little black sleeve or your rubber sleeve. In fact, let's go for a big one, shall we? Let's go for a big one. The reason you want a big one is, I'll just show you now. Use a big sleeve, push over the crimp, push over the clip. Once you have attached your hook trace, so you have your little hook trace swivel, you have your clip, it goes on like so. You then push this silicone sleeve there you go, and that can spin and spin and spin. It is never going to move. We then slide on our bead. Standard rubber bead. Non-serious, nothing sexual, nothing fancy, just a rubber bead. And it sits on the edge of your rubber sleeve like so. Because we're not really casting these that far, but this sort of fishing, I'm only really doing it off the edge of a boat. So I'm not really going that far with it. I'm going to use a plastic run ring. And then let's get our other sleeve. Slide this onto our up trace. Slide on our crimp. Again, all these wires and crimps and everything, I get them from Eddie Turner. So his details will be in the description below. If you want to go and splurge and buy some fishing wire and some stuff, go and see Mr. Turner, he will sort you out. I've showed you guys how to tie choke knots with wire. I've explained God knows how many times why I use a choke knot. I use a choke knot because I don't want the wire to slip. Again, with crimping, you don't have to crimp the bejesus out of it, you just have to give it a good firm squeeze. And there we have it. Now I'm going to attach a lead and I'm going to attach a little clip to the run ring. Here we go. So, oh shit, I'm attaching something here. So let me get this bag put away and I will show you. Garbage. You can do these on the bank, but it's a pain in the arse to do it on the bank. This is why I prefer to do all this sort of stuff in the house. When you have peace, you don't have anybody, you know, giving you earache or, well, No more earache than is normally expected when you're in your house, you know, from your loved ones. Come on, bag. So, obviously you don't want to touch that there. So, let's move you a little closer here so you can see it. There is your bait trace, 12 or 13 inches. Then we go down. There is your big bead, rubber sleeve, clip, swivel, bait trace, up trace, little lead on a little clip, little plastic run ring, and then it goes up to the end swivel. That is a running up trace. There is something else, it's called a fixed up trace. This is the one I use for a lot of float fishing with bigger baits. As the name suggests, this is fixed. Now, I'm going to get questions that saying, why are you using fixed? If the pike breaks you off, then surely the pike's going to be dragging this around and it's going to be bad for him. Again, true. But this is where you use, you know, 50-pound braid. This is where you're using, you know, you're not casting deliberately into tree stumps. You're fishing in water that you know isn't snagged. You know it's not an absolute mess. So you use a fixed up trace, where you have clip, ball bearing swivel, and a little inline lead. This weighs 1.5 ounces. This will be for one of the bigger floats that I use. And this will be, this trace here is about 3 feet long. This is made of 60-pound AFW wire as opposed to that made of 30-pound wire. This is designed so that when I'm fishing with my boat rods, the 10-foot boat rods, I'm fishing with a bigger float. I'm fishing with a, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm fishing with a bait that's quite big. Most of the bigger baits I would use, a bigger bait to me is anything, 1.5 to 2 pound. Yes, there are specific ways to hook them. No, it's not always the easiest thing to fish with. This is where you're in the boat, because you're not going to be able to cast a 2-pound rainbow trout. You have to kind of go to where you are in the boat, dump it over the side, and then kind of, drift away. Your float will drift away. Your bait will be kept, under the depth where you're stopped not. And this is your up trace. This is fixed. You can see that this is stuck to the. That's to show you. No, I can't because I've glued it in. But the wire will run straight through this, and here there's a little crimp and a little plastic bead that holds this in place. You can see the little plastic bead there. So that is fixed. If I'm fishing with a drifter float, this is the type of trace I use. So if you're fishing so that your bait won't come up above your lead will sit like that there in the water, and the fish might try and come up, but it's not going to lift. It's not going to sit with 1.5 ounces under it. It's going to get bored. It's going to pull it down. So this is going to be sat in the bottom. I'm going to take this bait trace, to use an example, and put it onto this fixed trace. So, imagine you have your fixed trace and you have your bait trace. And on the end of this bait trace, you step back, you have, say if you're allowed to fish with live bait, so you're fishing with live bait, you have a live trout or a live roach, it comes up to here and it's going to swim up there. Maybe even it gets a bit emotional and it swims up this far and it gets sunk back down again. But it would need to be able to swim, you know, plus 3 feet with the 1 ounce lead or the 1.5 ounce lead dragging it down. So say it's up around here and it gets tangled around your up trace. You know, say that it gets wound around and there's a proper old tangle and it's sitting like that on your up trace. If the pike comes in to attack the bait, it can attack the bait. You'll be fit to strike and put the hooks in the fish, but because there's wire above the wire trace, hence up trace, the chances of getting bit off are 0 because the pike's biting into wire, and as we all know, wire does not get bitten through, unlike fluorocarbons and monofilaments. So there we go. Now this rig's also good for popping up your baits. You don't always have to use a live bait. In fact, the last couple of times I've used this rig, it was exactly for that. It was for popping up a dead bait fished with a pencil float. So I'm going to show you some diagrams now, and that is how to fish with a float ledger using an up trace. Cheers guys. Before I forget, I'll show you what to do with this. This is the vein for your drifter float. Here we have our drifter rod. What did I just kick? Oh no, I'll find it in a minute. Here we have our drifter rod. So let's get our unclipped. This is that was my 12.5 foot drifter rod made by Grays. So here we have our drifter float minus the vein. So what we do, we take this little silicone sleeve off. Don't lose it because they're a bugger to try and find. We take off our elastic band. There is a hole in the bottom of the vein and then there's a little teeny tiny hole. You want to put the little teeny tiny hole through the main vein. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. Take your drifter float, put it on like this. Take your elastic band, put it on, bring it up to the top of the carbon stem, and you want to be putting the carbon stem through that little teeny tiny hole. Obviously not on that drifter vein because that one's just went to shit and broke on me. They do get brittle. I'm sure that Fox designed them so that they get brittle. Good thing they come in packs of 3 and 4, isn't it? Right. Let's try this again, shall we? In fact, let's see if I can get something maybe a bit bigger to make the hole a bit bigger. I'm going to use some scissor blades, just to make the hole that little bit wider. Like so. Now let's try it again. Drifter float vane, elastic band, and you push the, I've done this the wrong way around, let's try it a different way, shall we? Woohoo! It went on! Now can I slide it down the drifter float vane or stem without it friggin' snapping on me? And my elastic band's broke. I'll use a different elastic band. And there we go. Now I have to attach the elastic band to it. Elastic bands, why are you breaking on me? Let's go for a nice red elastic band this time, shall we? And because it broke, I can't be arsed taking the vane off the float again because it'll friggin' break on me. So I'm going to take the elastic band and thread it under here. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm just going to do it again and do it the proper way. Little stem through the top of it, like so. Then we take our elastic band and we go up and over like so. And all that does is it keeps a little kink in the vane. Why do you want a kink in the vane? Well, because it catches the wind. If you can see it like that, there's a little slight kink in it. Then you slide your silicone sleeve on. And this is how you rig it up. You take your... It comes with a little metal eye. You see it between those two beads there? The little metal eye gets pushed into your silicone sleeve. And that is it before it's ready to cast out. Now on the arse end, you'll see this load of mess. If I can untangle the friggin' thing. There we go. You have this thing here, that's called a controller. That is designed to float away from your drifter float, keeping the braid away from the drifter float, which means it shouldn't get tangled up. So you have swivel, catch, then tied as a bead through your controller. There's then another bead, your little metal eye, and another bead, and two little rubber stoppers. When you cast this out, the little rubber bead comes out, the little metal collar thing comes out, and your float will sit like that in the water, and it can twist and twist and twist and twist and twist, and it won't get tangled up because your controller is keeping the line away from your drifter float. This is one of my favourite methods of pike fishing, because with the drifter float it's so versatile. You can cast this out, let it go for half an hour, stop it, let it sit in that bit of water for half an hour, then give it another 20 or 30 yards of line, let it go another 20 or 30 yards, let it sit there for another half hour. You can explore so much water. The drifter float has accounted for some huge fish for me. So, drifter float, they don't always have to be made by Fox. This is just one I'm showing you because I have one to hand. But if you've never tried the drifter float, if you have a good day with the winds kind of at your back pushing you out to the middle of the loch, give the drifter float a go. You might be surprised. Anyway, tight lines.